So I just want to talk a little bit about resolution before we get deeper into Photoshop and it becomes a point of confusion for people. So once again, I've gone ahead and opened up the BaliPot.psd file, and that file, as you may remember, is a little on the small side. So let's go ahead and take a look now. Let's go to Image, and I'm going to go now and take a look at what we call resolution. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go to Image, and then we're going to go to Image Size. And so I'm going to bring this down a bit so you can see what I'm looking at. There it is. All right, so the image size window will give you an idea when you open up a file how large it really is. So you notice there's a few numbers here. One is I've got this set to inches, so it's 12 by 16 inches, which sounds quite large if you were to print this out, but you notice the resolution is only 72, okay? Which is not print resolution. This is screen resolution, which is typically what we use in these lessons to sort of save file space and make downloads easier and submissions easier. But if we were to actually print stuff, then this would not be enough. We'd want to go much, much higher than that. We want to go with a higher resolution, let's say 240 minimum, 300 is a good number to use as well. But as soon as we do that, Photoshop's going to ask us, do we want to resample the image if we're going to scale it up? And if we do, then we'll leave that checked. But if not, I'm going to take this off, and you'll notice now that all three of these are all tied together through this chain link. And that means that when I dial this number up to 300, you'll see that the inches go down in size. And the reason for that is because you're not, when you don't resample, you're just using the available pixels, the pixels that are already in that file, without adding any new pixels artificially. And this is the safest way to scale an image. Now, the problem is, of course, when you do that, you lose a lot of size. So now, if this print this out, it's only going to be 2 by 3 inches, which is significantly smaller than what we started off with. So I can try and dial this down to like 240, which is really a very acceptable print resolution if you're going to print this out. And you get a little bit more size out of it. So if I were to click OK to that, and then I were to go back to image size later on, I would see that that is now the file size that we're working with. Okay, so when it comes to resolution, the file size when you don't resample doesn't change. Okay, when you resample it, then you're allowed to scale it up or scale down. But if I were to go ahead and enlarge this by using one of these options, either to preserve the details or to go with a smoother option. In this case, since it's a person, I'd probably want to preserve those details. So I would go ahead and, now crank this up a little bit higher. Let's notice that the length, the height and width are still linked, so it's not going to distort or stretch the image. But let's just try to go say, let's say 7 inches instead of that. And so now it's showing me what that would look like. You notice that the file size jumped to 21 megabytes. It was originally 5.79, and then so that is a significant jump in file size, but also it's adding pixels. It's artificially adding pixels through interpolation. It looks at the existing pixels and then builds new ones based upon the colors. And so it's a less than perfect way of working, and adding resolution. Ideally, you'd want to do this by scanning the photograph over again or taking the photograph with a higher resolution. But if that's all you have to work with, then that is one way to do it. Now, unfortunately, if you're starting with an image that is poor in quality, this is not going to increase that. Okay, so don't go thinking you can just download a poor image from the web and then make it better by using this process. It simply won't work. It'll just make it bigger. It will not make it better, and it will not make it usable. So don't even waste your time. But anyway, that just gives you an idea of how the image size works. Now, I'm not going to cover scanning really in this class, just because scanners, nobody really uses scanners much anymore. I won't say nobody. People do use scanners. They use negative scanners and they use positive scanners, but for the most part, the average person, I think, now is using cameras more than ever since they become so easy to use, whether they're from your cell phone or they're from an actual camera. That just seems to be the main source of imagery these days for original images. followed by downloads from the internet if you're not making original images on your own. But if you do have old family photos that you're going to look to import into your computer, then yes, scanning is another option. And scanners are available quite cheaply on the market, and they will come with their own proprietary software, which is the main reason I don't cover it in this class. Is it's really impossible to cover scanning because every single scanner you buy has a different software. And so it's not something that is just built right into Photoshop. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out because I want to show you an example of now a much higher resolution image. And you'll notice that this one, I've got the image written on it. If you can go ahead and open this up, I've included it in the folder also. It's the Fijian village image. And if you go ahead and take a look at the resolution on that, this is 46 megabytes and it's an original size. It's 240 resolution and it's 9 by 14, significantly larger. And you see the detail just by looking at it at 100%, which is incidentally how you should view an image to judge its sharpness. Always look at it at 100% rather than zooming in to 200 or zooming out to 66. The only accurate way to judge sharpness and focus is 100%. But anyway, I'm just going through this, and you can see the detail in the grass and the detail in the palm trees, and it's quite detailed in terms of the resolution compared to the Bali Pot image, which is also a little on the grainy side. But here we go. I'll cancel that out. Now, of course, on first sight, both of these, Photoshop is going to zoom out to make them fit. So they both look the same. If you just look at this, say, oh, they're fine, they're both the same. But it's only when you zoom in, and we'll cover that later on with other lessons on how to navigate. But you can zoom in, then you see the real rich detail by zooming in on the photograph that is there, as opposed to the Bali Pot file, which when you zoom in, you start to see the lack of detail in that image in the lower resolution version. But anyway, just a quick little note there on resolution so you have a basic understanding of it. And of course, we'll get into more details on future lessons.